can do as far as this class is concerned. So quickly, let's look at continue from where we stopped last week, which is the project management processes. So what are the project? What are the stages of project management? They are also referred to as the project management processes. Okay, so we have about 5 of them, 5 project management processes. They are the initiation, we have the planning, we have the execution, we have the monitoring and control, and then of course we have the closing. Okay, those are the 5 project management processes. Okay, the 5 project management processes. There are about 5 of them: the initiation, the planning, the execution, the monitoring and control, and of course the closing. I think sometime last week we talked about we tried to introduce these 5 stages of project management, and I told us that for each of them, once you understand it as a project manager, it's very easy for you to execute any kind of program, any kind of project that you wish to do. All right, so let's look at the initiation. The initiation is to give birth to the project. Initiation actually gives birth to the project. It defines the project. It tells us, it defines the objective of the program, of the project. It tells us why we need to carry out that particular project or that particular activity. So that's basically what initiation does. So just like I said last week, we were looking at typical like food or stew. You said what gave birth to that what gave birth to the stew is the hunger, the need to eat before you sleep. So that's the objective. The reason why we're cooking the stew is because we are hungry, we need to eat before we sleep. So that's basically what initiation does. It gives birth, it defines the objectives. And under the initiation, there are a lot of things that are done under the initiation, which I think I remembered we talked about it last week. It tells us, it defines the objective of the project, that's the need for the project, by developing a business case. So under the initiation, you develop a business case. It tells us the need. Why do we need project management? Why is project management necessary? Why is that project necessary? So once we're able to get the objective of the project, the next stage in initiation is to carry out a feasibility study. You carry out a feasibility study of the project that you want to do, to know the scope, to know the extent, to be able to draw the budget. So feasibility study tells us, it helps us identify the needs, what the project would need, or what the project will require, the extent of damage, the extent of the problem, the extent of the work that needs to be done as far as that project is concerned. So that's carrying out a feasibility study. And then after that, we appoint a project manager, establish terms of reference. So project manager, who is going to cook that food? Okay, we start looking for the best caterers in town. Okay, and then that's appointing project manager. Then you establish terms of reference, meaning establishing terms of reference means comparing that project we want to do with the previous projects I've executed before in the past. Okay, because it's possible that, in fact, the truth is that project may not be the first that have been executed before. Someone must have done relevant related project to the one we're doing. So you could draw some inspirations, you could draw some processes, some procedures, and the rest of them from that. That's what we are establishing in terms of reference, so that when we are executing, we remind ourselves that what we are doing is not impossible, because someone else have done it before. So if somebody else have done it before, you can actually do that. So you draw your inspirations, you draw your motives, and the rest of them from that. But understand something: do not use the same budget because they've done that particular project before. Do not decide to use the same thing. Okay, changes in in the economy and the rest of them can bring about some differences. So don't use the cost as the budget or the time that they use. They're only drawing inspiration, telling yourselves that okay, yes, you can do it. Okay, and that's that. Then once that you establish a project management office where meetings and all those things will be held between the project sponsor and the project manager. Now, the person who is involved in the initiation is usually the project sponsor. Okay, so the project sponsor and his team are the ones who are always involved as far as initiation is concerned. Because at that particular point in time, the project managers and other stakeholders are not involved. Okay, so it's the project sponsor and his team that does all the things that are involved in the initiation. So once this has been concluded, we can now move to the planning. The planning stages. Remember, in the part of the activity that is done under the initiation is to appoint a project manager. So it's during the planning phase, which is the second stage of project management. That's where the project manager comes in. So when he comes to meet the sponsor who employed him or who appointed him to be the project manager. You now sit down on the table and look at the papers. Okay, you look at the feasibility study that the sponsor and his team already did. You look at the budget that they've allocated for the project, the schedule, which is the time that they've also allocated for the project. And then the project manager will now have to sit down and look at everything that the sponsor did. And then he decides whether it's convenient, it's efficient, and if it's effective. If not, he can bring in his own corrections and say, no, this part needs this part needs this. So there must be an agreement between the project manager and the project sponsor during that particular phase. That's the planning phase. So there are two stakeholders involved in planning phase. You have the project sponsor, you have the project manager, and you have the project team members. Okay, but in the initiation, it's only the sponsor and his team that is involved. All right. So once there's an agreement and they've agreed with the budget, with the scope, with the time, with everything, the project manager will now have to sign. The sponsor will now prepare a project charter, which will be signed by both the sponsor, that's the owner of the project, and the project manager. Now, the project charter is a document that authorizes the project manager to have authority over the project. So when it goes to the field and any regulating agency or whoever comes and says, what's authority over this project, is a project that gives the project manager the authority to take responsibility of the project delivery, project execution, from the execution to the handover. Okay, so once that is signed, they shake hands and everybody go their way. Now the project manager will now have to pick the project charter and of course the scope of statement, the preliminary scope statement of the project. That's everything that's been planned. You now have to sit down with his team members, still under the planning phase. He has to sit down with the team members to, also map out strategies on how they can actually execute that particular project. How are they going to carry it out? So during the meeting with the project manager and his team members, they're going to plan for budget. The budget has been drawn. If it's 30 million naira, they're going to sit down and map out how they're going to spend that 30 million naira judiciously, from start to finish. And they must spend it judiciously to be able to take care of the project needs. You look at the time management. How are they going to, if they're given 3 months to deliver the project, they're going to spend that time judiciously to make sure they deliver it within that time frame. So they have to plan for time management. They have to plan for procurement management. Procurement means, where are they going to buy the materials? Where are they going to rent some of the equipment they're going to be using? Which market and everything? How do they identify a registered seller? They have to plan for procurement. They have to plan for communication. Communication, how are we going to be relating during the project? Okay, how am I also going to relate to the sponsor? Under the communication, we have 2 types of communication. We have the written, we have the verbal, and we have the written. Okay, under the verbal, there are two forms of verbal communication. We have the formal verbal and the informal verbal. And of course, for the written, we have the formal written and the informal written. So which stakeholder needs which type of communication? They have to plan it. Of course, if you're talking with the sponsor, you have to use a formal written and a formal verbal. But if you're talking with stakeholders and other community leaders and the rest of them, you can use the informal written and the informal verbal, right? So you plan for communication. You plan for human resources. Who and who will be involved in the job? How many persons? How many bricklayers do I need? How many carpenters do I need? How many masons do I need? How many electricians do I need? And stuff like that. You plan for the human resources. That is people who are going to assist you in carrying out that project. So you plan for that. You plan for scope management, the extent, understanding the quality, what the sponsor wants at the end of the day. So you sit down and plan it. How do you deliver this particular project to specification as required by the sponsor? So you plan for scope. You plan for integration. Integration is, How am I going to fix? Because everything that's involved as far as the project is concerned must work together as one unit. So integration means to join, to unify, to bring things together. Now in project, you're bringing in the human resources, you're bringing in time, you're bringing in cost, you're bringing in all the materials you bought. All of them must work together to achieve one purpose. So we plan for integration. How do we join? How do we unify all the various aspects of the project so that they can all work together to produce that particular thing? So apart from integration, you plan for risk. Risk has to do with there are two types of risk. We have the business risk, we have the pure risk. Pure risk is the one that causes injury, okay, injury to the workers. So you have to plan for risk. What are the possible risks that the team members are going to face while executing the project? So you have to plan for risk. It's a fall from height and other stuff, so other problems associated with that particular project. And you planning the risk, you must come up with risk response plan, RRP, risk response plan. So in case it happens, are there measures to avert the risk or to reduce the severity of such? Talk about first aid box, providing personal protective equipment in the site, providing nose mask and the rest of them, everything that will protect their lives. Then the business risk has to do with losses, loss of financial losses due to financial irregularities. Okay, so you can pay for 50 bags of cement, you pay for the delivery and everything. So on their way, they get attacked on the road, and then they cut away with all the 50 bags of cement. What would you do? Who would you hold responsible? That's business risk and stuff like that. So you plan for risk, then you also plan for quality. Okay, you plan for quality. So these are the things you do under the planning stage. So the project manager and his team members, we have to sit down together and then plan for all this. Then once this is concluded, everything has been planned and everything is ready, you cannot go to the third one, which is the execution. Please separate execution from that monitoring. Okay, I'm going to separate it. Execution is actually the third stage, so don't write it together. Executing and monitoring. The third stage is execution. Okay, execution. Now execution is a place, is a stage where guys are in site, everybody's on site, the work is going on. Everything that we planned as far as the planning stage is concerned, we are now carrying them out. We plan for budget, how we're going to spend the money judiciously. We are now spending the money according to plan. How we're going to plan, how we're going to spend our time. Now we plan for time, we're carrying out, we're using the time and there for each activity, we're using it like that. That's execution. Risk, we're activating the PPEs inside, people are wearing it. All right, we're providing safety belts, people are actually wearing it. That's risk and every other thing. So that's execution. So execution is where the work is actually done properly on site. All right, now the fourth one is the monitoring and the control. Monitoring and control. M&C has to do with, just as the word goes, monitoring and control, to ensure that everything that is being planned, which is executed, is according to plan. So I don't deviate. Okay, during the execution, the monitoring and control helps us to ensure that everything that is planned is what is being executed. All right, that's monitor, and that's where your job as a project manager comes in, because you're not involved with the execution. It's your team members who you employed, they are the ones carrying out the job, but you are acting the supervisory role, you're acting the leadership role, you're the one directing them on what they're doing. So that's where you come in, to ensure that everything that is being executed is according to plan. That's for monitoring. Another essence of monitoring and control is it helps us identify problems or challenges or defects that may occur during project execution. And some of these challenges or problems may not originally, okay, be identified. Maybe it didn't occur to us that this kind of thing will happen. So monitoring and control, we're able to identify those defects and then quickly put a control measure to it, so that that defect or that problem doesn't affect the overall project project objective. Okay, so that's the essence of monitoring and control. Now, for also monitoring and control gives us the opportunity to follow the project on track, to see how far, the extent to which we have gone, so that in case the sponsor calls us and say, how far, which stage are you guys, how far have you guys gone, you'll be able to have a report to give. Why? Because you're already monitoring and controlling what they're doing. So it helps us fast track the completion of the project from one stage to the other. These are the essence of monitoring and control, and that is the fourth stage of project management. Then the last one is the closing. Closing is like a post-mortem. The project is ready. You're now ready to hand over the project to the project sponsor. That is closing. So all those ceremony that is done while handing over the project to the project sponsor, that is closing. You see, if it's a government project, once the project manager completes it, he informs the governor that our project is completed. The governor will now fix a date when the project manager will hand over the project to the government. Okay, so you see, they invite all stakeholders, community people, they do canopy, the governor will be invited. They will take the governor around the project to see. The governor says to himself that what I asked you guys to build is exactly what is there. When they are done, they'll come cut the red tape, back commission the project. You know, if there's any balance payments that the government have not paid the project manager, the balance of the listing, everybody shakes hand, and that's it. The project is over. So the project manager hands over the project that is completed to the project sponsor, which can either be the government, individual, or whoever gave him that work. So once you hand over, they balance all the payments, everything is okay, they shake hands, and that's it. That is the closing stage. All right. And there are three, like I always tell people, there are three reasons, there are three conditions for you to close the project. Three conditions to close the project. The first condition is project can be closed if the objective of the project has been met. That's number one. That's why you invite the governor. The governor sees that the objective of the project has been achieved, has been met, everything. They cut the tape, and that's it. That's number one condition to close a project. Number two condition is if the objective of the project can no longer be achieved. The first one, if the objective has been achieved, close it. Condition for closing the project. Number two, if the objective of the project can no longer be achieved, do not spend your, don't stop wasting the money, stop wasting time. If you don't know what to do anymore as a project manager, maybe initially you thought it's something you could do. As you enter the initial phase, you discover that it's becoming too complex for you and your team members. Instead of wasting time, wasting energy, wasting money and everything, just go back to the project sponsor and close it down. Say, sorry, don't be angry, no vex. Things are something if you do, close it down. Okay, you just, of course, I know there are a lot of issues that will come up, but once you're able to settle it out with the sponsor, he understands and you close it down. All right. Now, what the sponsor has to do now is to look for somebody else who can now continue from where you stopped. All right. That's why you see government would say this project was awarded to the contractor, but it was taken away from him and re-awarded to the contractor. Okay. Sometimes if the sponsor sees that what the objective, the project manager is not even meeting the objective of the project, he's doing something else, he's doing a shabby work, he closes it out with that particular contractor and finds somebody. All right, so that's the second objective. That's the second condition to close down the project, if the project objective can no longer be met. Then the third one is if the need for the project no longer exists. If the need for the project no longer exists, remember during the initiation we said develop a business case. What that's telling us the reason why we should execute that project. Like we said, the stew that we've been cooking since as our case study, we said we want to satisfy our hunger. That's the reason. If I'm no longer hungry, maybe along the line, as I'm about starting the stew cooking, maybe I just put the rice on fire, I'm about putting the stew on fire, or maybe I just finished grinding the blending the tomato and everything, I'm about frying, and a friend of mine just walking with a plate of rice, fried rice from maybe from Sizzlers or from Kilimanjaro, for example. He comes and we eat. After eating that food he bought from fast food, I'm satisfied. The need for cooking the stew no longer exists again. But the reason I wanted to cook is because I'm hungry. But now I'm no longer hungry. So the need for the stew no longer exists. What will I do? I'll postpone the cooking of that stew because the need no longer exists. Even if I've blended the tomato, I'll just put inside plate, put inside my fridge till the next time when the need arises. So that's the third condition to close down the project, if the need for the project no longer exists. So three conditions: if the objective has been met, if the objective can no longer be met, and if the need for the project no longer exists. those are the 3 conditions. So far so good today. I think we're able to do something with the little time that we have. We look at the stages of project management, or also referred to as the project management processes. So hopefully when we come next time, we look at why project management is important. Why is project management important? We'll take it from there, and then we'll continue and proceed. Thank you so much for your patience. I sincerely apologize again for coming a bit late. It wasn't my making, it's my network and my system that was just playing a fast one on me. All right, so hopefully by next time we won't have this kind of challenge again. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next week. Have a lovely day.